Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I am Catalina Tamayo, Marketing Director at Pragma. Nicolás and Neha will be our speakers today. At the end of these sessions, we're going to have some space to discuss some of the questions that you may have. And we will also send you a very short survey to understand how you like this webinar so we can also improve for next time. Thanks again for being with us. Nico, Neha, this is all yours.
Thank you, Kata. I will share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this Pragma talk. Here we'll be taking a deep dive into navigating the API, economy model, and observability with AWS. This Pragma talk, this Pragma talk is based on a blog post we shared on the official AWS website. Actually, here is a QR code. It draws on Pragma's experiences working with major banks, retailers, and insurance companies in Colombia and Latin America, where our application user count ranges from 4 million to 17 million. From this, we have identified three key pillars: understanding the business, selecting the business model, and architecture design. Later, we will show you a demo about AWS API Gateway and AWS Services of Observability. Right after this demo, Neha from AWS will be sharing some insights about AWS Data Exchange, which is a very useful service for the API economy model. Before starting with this Pragma talk, I would like to tell you a little bit about myself. I am Nicolás Archila. I am CTIO in Pragma. I am an IT engineer with a master's degree in IT architecture. I have more than 10 years of experience designing end-to-end solution architecture. Feel free to connect with me using my LinkedIn QR code. I will be presenting alongside Neha, a partner solution architect at AWS. Welcome, Neha. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Nico. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, based on where you are joining us from. My name is Neha. I work as a partner solutions architect here at AWS, and I welcome you all to this talk with Pragma and API economy observability. Over to you, Nico.
Thank you, Neha. If you have to connect with Neha, please use her LinkedIn QR code. As mentioned, Catalina, if you have any question, feel free to write them on the chat box. Now, let's dive into these pillars. Let's start our journey by understanding the business and current architecture. It's key to identify the company, understand their operation, and their goals. Equally significant is recognizing the stakeholders and their respective roles. We must identify the user along with the architecture drivers, encompassing business goals, business processes, legal and technical constraints, and quality attributes metrics. It's crucial to note that these metrics must be quantifiable. For instance, the API should respond in less than 3 seconds. Now, let's talk about the business models. Here we have 6 models. The API marketplace establishes a set of APIs for multiple developers. The second, partnerships, involve collaborative work with another company or user to share technology, components, or services. For instance, we could provide services while other party contributes with the payment gateway. We also have finance as a service, providing diverse banking capabilities for other companies. For instance, for fintechs. We also have API aggregator and data aggregator. They are very similar. The main difference is that the API aggregator consolidates various APIs from different banks, for example, and exposes them through a single API. On the other hand, the data aggregator consolidates data from multiple sources through a single API. The last model is the data vendor, which involves data sharing agreements. Now, let's delve into the monetization models. The first one is data models. Here, charges apply each time the data is delivered, or charges are based on the volume of data. The second model is per call request model. In this model, charges are incurred per quantity of requests. For instance, you could charge for 1,000 requests. Transaction model. Here, charges are applicable upon completion of the transaction. Subscription model. The model allowing you to share a fee on a recurring basis, monthly, weekly, or annually. Additional charges may apply if the usage exceeds the specified limit. Premium model. Under this model, basic API usage is free, and supplementary charges apply when the usage exceeds the threshold. Rebate model. This approach involves providing a refund for API usage. For example, if a customer consumes 1 million requests, you could refund 10% of the expenses related to consumption. And the last one is revenue sharing model. In revenue sharing model, your success is tied to the customer's success. An agreement could be reached to share a percentage of the customer's profits. These monetization models offer flexibility and serve different business and customer needs. Now, let's talk about the architecture design. Here, as you can see, we have 4 key pillars: government, integration and architecture design, security design, and observability. The first pillars we will talk about is government, which includes the API distribution with domain-driven design or API-led connectivity. This distributing APIs across 3 layers: experience, which is related to the user; process, which is related to business logic; and system, which is related to connecting with other systems. And you could use buy-in with service landscape, covering business areas, business domains, and services domains. The API lifecycle, whose phases include designing, building, testing, deploying, and gathering feedback on user experience to enhance APIs. It's imperative to incorporate API version management, continuous integration or continuous deployment, infrastructure as a code, and of course, deployment strategy to enhance user experience. Here, strategies such as blue and green or canary release should be considered. API catalog, reviewing available APIs to promote reuse and prevent duplication, and exposure in developer portals or public portals is key here. In documentation, the recommendation is use formats such as RAML or Swagger and include a sandbox to identify the API in developer or public portals. And consent manager. In addition to authentication and authorization, it is crucial to have a consent manager for sharing user data with third parties. This comprehensive approach ensures a robust architecture design that aligns with governance principles and enhances overall system effectiveness. In the next pillar, we have integration and architecture design. It's recommended to contemplate views and viewpoints and each model within them, as well as architecture styles to achieve the established quality attributes, such as API and microservice, command and queries, publish and subscribe, or publish and subscribe. Integration mechanisms such as message channel, pipe and filter, message router, or even message relator. It's important to contemplate protocol and standard too, data architecture, and monetization architecture. Now, let's delve into the third pillar, the foundation of security. It's essential to carry out a detailed analysis to address multiple vulnerabilities. Moreover, it's imperative to consider the laws and standards of each country. STRIDE, which is an acronym for 6 types of threats, which are spoofing, which is mitigated with authentication, tampering, which is mitigated with integrity, repudiation, which is mitigated with not repudiation strategies, information disclosure, which is mitigated with encryption in transit or even at rest, denial of service, which is mitigated with availability, and elevation of privilege, which is mitigated with authorization. We should also consider the OWASP Top 10 ISO 20022 standard for payments, FAPI, policies, and traffic management. And the final pivotal pillar is observability. It's imperative to address diverse inquiries pertaining to both the business and the system, and careful consideration of logs, metrics, and traces, along with infrastructure monitoring is paramount to achieve this. Security monitoring, of course, application performance management, real user monitoring, synthetic monitoring, transactional audit. Additionally, log management is crucial for both security and cost efficiency. For example, if you have to store a log for 5 years or more, you could store it in a cost-efficient storage, and you need to protect it from multiple attacks. There are some questions you need to answer. For example, percentage of successful and failed transaction, number of requests could be per second, per minute, hour, month, or year, API consumption plan per customer, infrastructure cost, most and least used APIs, payload size, response time, And if an error occurs, figure out what went wrong, identify the cause, and come up with a plan to fix it. And finally, ensure you have a dashboard that shows the answer without relying on technical experts. Additionally, have the possibility of exporting the answer to deliver more value to user. Here, this is our reference architecture and the summary of these pillars, which includes API management with API lifecycle management, policy definition, policy definition, runtime observability, API gateway management, user and role management, key management, and usage plan management. On the other hand, we have API design and development with API first design console, API discovery and subscription, API approve, workflow, and the API distribution as we mentioned before, along with common utilities for the APIs. It includes consideration for the API development lifecycle and API's purpose, whether it's for exposure through channels to end user of your business, or for making APIs available to businesses, partners, and the general public. Additionally, it explores architecture styles, pattern styles, and methods of accessing data. Now, let's continue with the demo. Indeed, this is the blog post. As you can see, it contains all information about this Pragma talk. The summary, exploring API economy APIs as a service, and the different steps and best practices from Pragma for the thriving API economy model. Okay, and here we can find a repository, which is published in GitHub. In GitHub, give me 1 second. In GitHub, you will find the Postman, which you can import in a Postman, is already built, and you can find the infrastructure as a code. This infrastructure as a code is validated, and it contains all information and all services that we contemplate for this example. And this infrastructure as a code is created on AWS CloudFormation. This infrastructure as a code leads these exciting results. Here, you will find an API named payment. Dive into it, and you will discover a resource that is connected with AWS Lambda through integration request, as you can see. We also have the stages product with custom access login and X-ray tracing activated. Additionally, we could see the payment authorizer, in this case with Amazon Cognito, which ensures that the user has a token to consume the API. Now, let's take a peek at the dashboard, where you'll find insights into multiple APIs metrics. API, for example, API calls, as you can see here, latency, integration latency, 400 errors, and 500 errors. In this case, we have nothing about that. In this infrastructure as a code, we also provide the API's keys, allowing you to assign a unique key to each user, along with usage plan. This usage plan can be configured for rate, bars, and quota. Even you can edit usage plan and see that this service allowing flexibility on a monthly, weekly, or daily basis. Here in AWS API Gateway, connected to AWS Marketplace is now seamlessly achievable. Moreover, there is an exceptional service that links your APIs with AWS Marketplace. Neha will delve into the details of AWS Data Exchange shortly, which is an exceptional service, really. And on the other hand, we have Amazon DevOps Guru. Amazon DevOps Guru is an exceptional observability service founded on machine learning models to provide multiple recommendations. It can give you two types of recommendation: reactive, when one error has occurred, or proactive suggestion to address potential issues. As illustrated on the screen, Lambda function doesn't have enough subnets in Lambda authorizer type. In this case, Amazon DevOps Guru identifies and communicates such deficiencies, offering valuable recommendation for improvement, as you can see here. In Amazon DevOps Guru, you could enable, for example, in this case, you can see that it is reviewing API Gateway and Lambda of the stack of CloudFormation called API Economy Example. Economy Example stack. But you choose resource to analyze, for example, CloudWatch stacks, all account resources. You could choose per tags, or you could choose don't analyze any resource. That is a good and incredible service for observability. Now, another improvement and important service is AWS X-Ray. AWS X-Ray is an application performance management service which helps me track transaction. As you can see here, you can track transaction of the API gateway. As you can see the metrics, the alerts, and response times distribution. You can identify the average latency, the request. In this case, we have out that 34 requests per minute, and you can identify the faults. In this case, we have nothing. And even you can identify the behavior in the AWS Lambda. As you can see here in this service, you can track all transactions. You have the trace, and in all transactions, you have the average latency, request, false, and the error percentage. It also shows, as you can see, the P50, P90, and P95. So I can get good insights to make a good decision and change different behaviors of my observability and identify the behavior of my system. Finally, it's very, very, very important to consider additional CloudWatch services such as synthetic CloudWatch and, better yet, expose all this information in Amazon QuickSight or through CloudWatch dashboard. It's important to consider that all these views are based in CloudWatch Labs group. Now, Neha will talk about an incredible service, AWS Data Exchange. Neha, welcome to this Pragma Talk, newly, and the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nico. That was a super interesting and useful session. I'll share my screen and I'll get started. So, as Nico mentioned, I'll be talking about AWS Data Exchange and show you how you can be a producer of a data set and share it as an API, as well as earn money by sharing it using AWS Data Exchange. So what is AWS Data Exchange? It is a service that makes it easy for AWS customers to find, subscribe, and use third-party data in the cloud. So what are some of the benefits of AWS Data Exchange? I have a very interesting demo to go through. So I'll be quickly going on through the slides and then explain how the console actually looks like, how can you add a product, how can you subscribe to a product and whatnot. So AWS Data Exchange has an easy to use interface and it has workflows for subscribing and integrating data. It is secure and compliant like every other AWS service, and it provides fine-grained access controls, encryption, audit logs, and so on. One other important thing it is a self-service for subscribers. So for people who are looking for data, you can search for, browse through, use the sample data, and if you are happy with the data, you can also finally subscribe to data products. Again, it is a cloud native service, meaning it is fully managed and meaning it is a fully managed service. And finally, it provides a seamless experience from data discovery to subscribing to integrating data. Now, why was AWS Data Exchange introduced? It was introduced to bridge the gap between providers and subscribers exchanging data, meaning the main aim was to help customers lower costs, become more agile, and innovate faster. We help organizations find the data they are searching for with our comprehensive catalog, which includes more than 3,500 products from over 300 data providers. We also support private products for cases when customers want data that is not in the open catalog, which is public. We have over 2,000 free public data products for customers that want to try prior to buying and support private data as well. And finally, we support data delivery via files, tables, as well as APIs, which I'll be showcasing in the demo today. So how does it combine? Like, it has easier administration and it gives you a unified platform for sharing and subscribing to data. It makes it easier to use data because it is able to integrate with other AWS services as well. Customers can ingest third-party data files into Amazon S3, and then they can start preparing and analyzing it with data integration, data analytics, machine learning tools within just minutes of subscribing. So you don't have to wait for collecting data, cleaning the data, preparing data, and then working on the underlying downstream applications like analytics and machine learning. Customers can also ask for data delivery via Amazon Redshift, which is our data warehousing service. This allows the providers to handle the work needed to cleanse, validate, and transform the data, and it is just ready to use for the customers, and they can do other downstream analytics application on top of the data, which is provided by a provider. Customers can also ask for data delivery via APIs, which I'll be showcasing in the demo. And if you are a provider, meaning you are someone who is selling some kind of data, global distribution of your data business through AWS Data Exchange is only a few clicks away with our easy to use API and console experience. Again, because security has always been AWS's top priority, AWS Data Exchange is a secure and compliant way to exchange data. Some security features are all data is encrypted at rest and in transit, and AWS Data Exchange is also integrated with AWS Identity and Access Management, meaning you can create fine-grained controls using IAM. It also integrates with AWS License Manager, which can track and distribute licenses to AWS Data Exchange products. So the administration can emulate and enforce the terms of their licensing agreements by completely controlling which accounts can access the data in AWS Data Exchange. Going on to the business side of things, AWS Data Exchange provides one place to exchange data privately as well as openly. Today, hundreds of data providers make thousands of different data products available to the millions of AWS customers worldwide in our catalog. Subscribers can browse our catalog on the AWS Marketplace or accept private offers with bespoke content, commercials, or terms. And it simplifies the billing management as well. All new and existing subscriptions appear in the AWS Data Exchange console. So you have one place where you can track all of your subscriptions as well. And last but not the least, any fees for commercial data products are consolidated on the customer's AWS invoice, saving subscribers from having to set up and manage yet another billing relationship. Everything happens through the AWS invoice only. So the providers can be assured that they will be paid in timely fashion through AWS. So what are the benefits for the provider, meaning the companies who are trying to sell the data and the companies who are trying to subscribe to or use that data? Starting on with subscribers, all of this means less time spent searching for data, building infrastructure to get it in production, and ensuring that data and delivery is compliant with industry regulations. Instead, you and your engineers, analysts, and scientists can start using the data as soon as you license it, meaning you can start training on top of that data and gain faster business insights. Whereas on the other hand, for providers, it means reduced costs of customer acquisition, reduced data engineering time, effort, and cost with easier distribution. And also, by joining the AWS Partner Network and co-selling with AWS's account teams, providers can reach millions of potential customers and meaningfully grow their revenues. So overall, this slide unifies what all I have covered. AWS Data Exchange is a comprehensive data service enabling data providers to securely deliver data in three ways: via files, tables, or via APIs. When we first launched AWS Data Exchange in 2019, we launched it with the most requested delivery type functionality, which was versioned file-based datasets. So once a dataset is exported to S3, the customers can use AWS services to transform it into tables for use with analytics and other machine learning AWS services to get insights out of that data. In 2021, 2 years back, we launched data delivery via Amazon Redshift and APIs as well. So with AWS Data Exchange for Amazon Redshift, you as subscribers can get access to live, ready-to-use tables that you can query and analyze in Amazon Redshift or easily ingest into other database services. And finally, with AWS Data Exchange for APIs, customers can integrate third-party data into any of their company's software via API requests without any ETL. And we make this easy as customers can leverage AWS native authentication and governance explore consistent API documentation, and use the AWS SDKs to make API calls. And we also have now available for Amazon S3 and for lake formation as well. So with Amazon S3, it enables customers to easily find, subscribe to, and use third-party files from Amazon S3 buckets directly. And same is the case with lake formation, which is in preview for now. So now that you have some idea of what AWS Data Exchange is and how it can help both the product sellers as well as the subscribers, let's go on through the demo for AWS Data Exchange. So this is the AWS console. And as I mentioned in the presentation, AWS Data Exchange is a service that allows you to easily find, subscribe to, and use third-party data in the cloud. So let's first take a look at all of the options we have so that you are more familiarized with what are the options we have and how you will start using AWS Data Exchange. The first tab is the Browse Catalog section, which allows you to browse and search the data. So as you can see, we have many data sets here and you have multiple filter options as well. So you can search for data here and then subscribe to the data. The My Product Offers is for data exchange providers, meaning the people who are trying to sell data, and they can manage the data sets they are offering for sale or subscription through this tab. Going on to subscriptions, it allows you to view and manage your active and past subscriptions to data sets on Data Exchange. So as you can see, this account has subscribed to 2 data sets. Going on to entitled data, it shows you the data sets that you have current access to based on our active subscriptions. So as you can see here, these are the data sets that are active in my subscription list, and it gives me all of the information on what is the data set, what is the base URL I can use to make a call to the data set and whatnot. And finally, going on to subscription requests, it can be used for data providers to view and manage subscription requests sent by customers who are interested in their data sets. Right now in this account, we don't have any requests, but if you have any, you can check it from this screen. Finally, going on to the products type. So for providers to manage the data sets they are offering as products for sale, this tab is used. So you can configure pricing, entitlements, and all that details from this page. The subscription verification allows providers to verify customer subscriptions for entitlement and access to their data sets. Finally, owned data sets is again for the data providers so that they have a list to see what all data sets they are owning right now and what all data sets they want to convert into a product and start selling. And finally, send notification is used by providers. So in case you are a data provider, right, and there is some data delay, deprecation, or there is a schema change in the underlying data, you can use this step to send the notification. So all of your subscribers can be notified at once on what are the underlying changes in the data set. So in summary, it allows browsing, purchasing, and subscribing to data and managing the overall life cycle of data subscription and product offerings. Now let's go through the small details of the demo. So for this demo, I have set up an API gateway, time API, and that invokes a Lambda function, as you can see here. So let's go through the Lambda function. So this API gateway has a single endpoint that gives us the current date and time. So this is the Lambda function code. And if I paste it, as you can see, it gives me the current date and time in response. So for the purpose of this demo, let's say I want to package this API data, meaning the API that gives us the current date and time, and I want to sell it to other customers. So I want to allow other AWS customers to subscribe to and use it. I can do that to AWS Data Exchange. So let's get started. So in order to publish a data product, the first step the provider needs to do is to configure a few things in AWS Data Exchange. So from the AWS, I'll just cancel this. So from the AWS Data Exchange console, I'll go to owned datasets. And from here, I will create a new dataset based on my API gateway that we are using. As you can see, that we have multiple options for the dataset type. It can either be files, Amazon S3, Amazon Redshift. But for the purpose of this demo, I am using an Amazon API gateway API. I'll just name this dataset as test API, giving in the same description, and click on create dataset and continue. So after choosing the API gateway, I specify the stage name of the API I want to include. So this API stage is defined in the API gateway. So I'll just select this, and the stage name is dev. And once we have done this, we will document the API for subscribers. So why is this needed? So that the people who are trying to use this data, they can understand what the data is and how they can use it. And it can be done automatically if we use import from Amazon API gateway. So as you can see here, it does specify what the data is, what it is doing, what the source account is, and whatnot. And I'll click on add API stage. And once I add the API stage, I click on next, review all of the details, and just finalize dataset. And if I click on own dataset, as you can see, the test API dataset is created. The first step is completed. And as you can see here, the status is ready to share. So we can now create a product based on this dataset. So the second step would be create a product. This bundles one or more datasets into a product offering. So I go to the product section and I click on publish new product. So here I get two options, whether I want a public or a private product. For this demo, I'll be making a private product. So what is the difference between a private and a public product? The main difference is that the private products are only visible to subscribers that I specify, whereas the other product type is open to all. So all of the AWS customers would be able to see your product and subscribe to it. I'll check if I have any sensitive information. This is a dummy data. We just have date and time, so we have no sensitive information. Click on next, and from here I'll get to choose what are the data set I want to get out through this product. Now we can select multiple data sets as well, but for the purpose of this demo, I'll just be selecting the one that we just created. Click on add selected. And then click on next. Now I have to enter the product details. So it is, I'll name it as date and time API. We have to add a product logo. So let me do that. Adding a random logo, entering support contact. So I'll add my email. And that is it. We have to have a product definition as well. I will give the same definition just in the interest of time, and click on next. So once we have clicked on next, we get to decide like what type of offer we want to do. Is it a private offer or bring your own subscription and whatnot? I will be selecting a private offer. And finally, I have to give the account information of the subscriber. I'll be using the same account as the subscriber as well. Test account. And for pricing as well, you get like, since this is a private offer and in my account, I am only allowed to publish free products, meaning $0 USD, but you can add multiple metered costs as well. So you can have your own cost. You can have your own cost defined based on per API request, or you have you can charge based on per unit of the data transferred as well. So based on your use case, you can define the meter costs. Set the offer expiration date and offer auto renewal. I'm selecting no for now. I'll click on next. I just have to have the duration, so I'll give it 12. Click on next, and then I'll just review all of the settings and publish it. So this will submit the new product for review, but it would take some time for the approval because in the backend, the marketplace team does review the product for security and all other details. And once it is reviewed and approved, it would be available on marketplace for subscribers. So let's go to marketplace. As you can see here, this is AWS marketplace. And if you go to delivery methods and click on AWS data exchange, it gives you all of the data products that we have listed on marketplace. So if you are a data producer, if you want to sell data products, once you create a product and it is approved, it will be available on this page only if it is an open to public product. And if you are a data subscriber, meaning you want to subscribe, you can come on this page and look for what all products you want and then click on continue to subscribe from here, and you will be able to subscribe. Going on again to the data exchange console, and now let's look at the subscriber side of things, right? So since the data product that I created has not been approved yet, it does take some time in the backend. For the purpose of this demo, I have already subscribed to 2 products. So this screen shows you all of the subscriptions that you currently have. So a common question is, how does a data consumer subscribe? Which I showed you. You have to go to AWS Marketplace, look for the product, click on subscribe, and you will be able to subscribe to the data product. The last part of this demo is looking at the entitled data, which I showed you. So entitled data shows you the data products that a customer has purchased or subscribed to on the AWS Data Exchange Marketplace. So once entitled, the customer has access to that data product and they can integrate that data into their applications and systems. So let me look at this data product at last demo API. Now it has like multiple features as well, right? The integration notes provides details on how to integrate and access the entitled data programmatically. So the base URL is very important. This is the endpoint URL that can be used to make requests to access the entitled data to the AWS Data Exchange API. And again, this URL will be specific to the data product. We also have authentication, which specifies how a customer needs to authenticate their request to access the entitled data. And the code structure may be provided to help with integration. So some examples may include SDK for code for common programming languages, example, JSON requests, response formats, and so on. So this helps to speed up the integration process. Thus, in summary, AWS Data Exchange allows data providers to easily package and sell data products like APIs, S3 buckets, Amazon Redshift table files, and whatnot, giving the subscribers an integrated way to discover and use third-party data in their AWS workloads. Awesome. This was it for me. Now I believe we would be able to take any questions that we all have.
Yes, thank you, Neha. Thank you, Nico. We do have some questions. The first one is Pragma available in AWS or also available in other CSPs like Azure and GCP too? Nico, I believe that one is for you.
I want to answer that. Actually, Pragma is specialized in AWS, but is also specialized in Azure and GCP. For that reason, Pragma is also available in Azure and GCP. Mainly in AWS and Azure.
Thank you, Nico. We have another question from Sean Davidson. How should companies approach selecting a business model for API deployment, considering their unique market and operational dynamics?
Okay, I think that is a good question. Let me stay here in the business model. I think that we need to choose the correct business model according the business goals. For that reason, in this case, it's very important understanding the business, identify the stakeholders, and who is the user. We must identify the user. With that, we could choose and identify what is the best business model for the business. For example, if your company want to offer different service, different finance as a service, to provide, for example, for fintechs, the most important business model here is buying finance as a service. Is that if the idea of your business is consolidates various APIs, for example, consolidates movement from different banks and expose through a single API. With that, the user could choose different or could make different decisions. In that case, the best case is API aggregator. I would like to add something. Is important to identify the correct monetization model, and is not only one monetization model. For example, your API could have more than one monetization model because there are many users that they want to use your APIs, and one user want to pay per request call, and other user want to pay upon completion of the transaction. And you could have per request call and transaction model in the same API and in the same business model. Then the idea is to choose the correct business model according to the business goal, and to choose the correct monetization could be one or more for your for the success of your business.
Okay, thank you, Nico. Another question is, how much quantity of data can be transferred through APIs in data exchange service?
I think
Sure.
that Neha want
Yep,
to.
I can take that. So as far as I know, I need to cross-check, but there are no hard limits set by AWS on the amount of data that can be transferred through AWS API gateway. But I can look for a link. This is the link which states all of the quotas. I'll just copy it. So you can look at the quotas, and based on your use case, you can decide if you want to use API gateway or a different data source.
Okay,
Awesome.
thank you, Neha. A question from Rosel. What are some common challenges companies face when adopting an API-centric business model, and how can they be effectively addressed?
Okay, that is a good question. In summary, I think that this presentation, this Pragma talk, is the answer for that. But I want to deep dive into this question. Then we are front different challenge, as for example, when your company adopt API centric business, is a very challenge is govern all APIs in your company, because with when you have many developers, is normally that your company duplicates many APIs, and govern APIs duplicated is very difficult. It's very difficult even to achieve a regulatory of your country, or to increment value to user. For example, if you have APIs duplicated, you could deliver one value through app and one value through portal. For that reason, it's very important government the APIs. That is, I think that is the main principal challenge, the duplicate APIs. But another challenge is identify your user and your business, because sometimes we think that we have a good business, a good service to expose through API, and in that case, I expose through that API with a monetization model. But the user the user don't want that API or that service, or your user wants that service, but uh, he doesn't want that monetization model. For that reason, it's very interesting to identify the business goals, the user, who will be the user that will use your APIs, and in APIs to contemplate a good architecture design. And it contemplate a good government, a good observability is another challenge. Is not possible to have a thriving API economy model if you don't see what is happening with your system. The security, of course, for regulatory terms, and for the security of your business, and the correct integration architecture design.
Okay, thank you, Nico. And we have one last question from Freddie. Which on-premise technologies are the prospective candidates to migrate to this model in order to adopt this better technology and better administration enhanced features? Any integration suites based on queue or SOA message orchestration technologies are candidates? Requires any maturity previous strategy to think in it?
Okay, thank you for your question, Frey. I think that is more than let me think about to give you a good answer. The idea when you have an on-premise technology, okay, if you want migrate that on-premise, is important to contemplate that roadmap, a journey to cloud, to migrate that. And in that journey to cloud, you need to consider the security, you need to consider the observability in the cloud, as well as in the on-premise, because while you migrate your application of from on-premise to cloud, you need to conserve both of them. And for that reason, I think that it's important to contemplate the same four key pillars, but in the first four key pillars and the roadmap to journey to cloud. And while you execute your journey to cloud, it's important to identify how to connect the cloud with on-premise, for example, with direct connect or with VPN. And in addition of that, it's important to contemplate if you need to synchronize or asynchronize request. And in that case, if you have asynchronized, you could use command and queries, for example, or event-driven architecture, for example. And with that, you could use queues or SOAS message state.
Okay, Nico, thank you very much. Neha, thank you very much. Thank you all for joining us for this session. I just sent you through the chat the link of a very short survey if you could help us fill in it. And I also sent you Nicolás' email. If you have any questions you'd like to discuss any of these further, please feel free to send us an email.
Thank you so
Nico,
much,
Neha,
Kata. Thank you
thank
so
you.
much,
Awesome.
all of you, for your attention.
Thank you all for joining.
Bye bye.
Bye.